everyone. Today I'm going to read a book named Puss in Boots. I think this orange cat is Puss in Boots. He's so cute. He's so cute because he has the big smile on his face. And I have heard many stories and read many books about Puss in Boots and heard many movies. But I'm going to read it with you once more. So let's start the story. Once there was a poor miller who had 3 sons. When he died, he left them all he had in the world: his mill, his donkey, and his orange tabby cat. Before anyone could blink, the eldest son took the mill. Then the middle brother grabbed the donkey. Tom, the youngest, was left with the cat. This isn't fair. He wasn't impressed. You two can work together and earn living, Tom grumbled. What can I do with Puss? Maybe I will have to eat him. Help, I need a plan fast, thought Puss. Later, when they were alone, Puss jumped onto Tom's lap. Don't look so gloomy, master. Things are not as bad as they seem, he said with a purr. Find me a bag and a pair of boots and you'll see. Tom was astonished. Puss could talk. I have one amazing cat, said Tom. And then Tom remembered that he had often seen Puss using incredibly clever tricks to catch rats and mice. So Tom found Puss a leather bag and a shiny pair of boots. He gave him a cloth and a floppy hat too. The cat filled the bag with carrots, stuffed off into the fields. Puss headed for a field where he knew there were lots of rabbits. Opening the bag, he stretched out on the ground and pretended to be dead. Just as he expected, a foolish young rabbit came bouncing along and sniffed the carrots. And as he poked his quivering nose into the bag, Puss pounced. Got you! Puss was delighted with his catch. He marched straight to the palace and asked to see the king. In front of the throne, Puss bowed low. Your Royal Highness, I have brought you a gift from my master, Duke of Camboris. How amazing! A talking cat! How kind! Thank your master very much, replied the king. The next day, Puss went into the fields again. This time he hid among some golden corn. He held his bag wide open, and 2 partings flew straight in. Puss clunked as he pulled the drawstring tight. Once more, Puss took his catch to the king. Take these gold coins for your master, said the king. Puss became a regular visitor to the palace. Soon the king began to wonder who the generous duke was. One day, Puss and Tom were walking by the river. Puss knew the king would be driving by with his beautiful daughter, Princess Umbrella, and he had a plan. When Puss spotted the royal coach in a distance, he turned to Tom. Quick, "Take off your clothes and jump in the river," he told him. "It's freezing," said Tom. Tom was puzzled, but he trusted Puss, so he jumped in. A minute later, Tom was even more puzzled. First, Puss hid all his clothes under a large stone. Then he started to scream, "Help! Help! Please rescue my master, the Duke of Camberus." As the royal coach came by, the king recognized Puss. "Guard, pull the Duke out of the water at once," he ordered. "Fearful thieves attacked my master and stole his clothes," Puss explained. "That's terrible," said the king, "but I think I can help." He snapped his finger and a servant ran up. "Go to the palace and fetch some clothes for the Duke," said the king. All this time, Princess Ambraro had been looking from the coach. When she saw Tom in his fine new clothes, she jumped off her seat. He was so handsome. "Duke of Camberus, this is my daughter, Princess Ambrose." "Does he mean me?" thought Tom. Tom bent and kissed Princess Ambrose on the hand. "Oh," she gasped and smiled. The king insisted that Puss and the Duke join them on their drive. "You go, master," said Puss, pushing Tom forwards. "I have some endurance to run 40 fields." As the coach rumbled along, Puss raced ahead. He still had lots to do. Before long, he came to some men mowing a field. Puss clapped his paws. "Listen to me," he shouted. When the king drives by, tell him this field belongs to the Duke of Camberus, or my master will chop you into mincemeat." Wow! A talking cat! His master must be a magician, thought the farmers. The men didn't dare to refuse. Sure enough, when the king arrived, he asked them who owned the field. "The Duke of Camberus, your highness." The men had been so frightened by Puss's threats, they all spoke together. Tom was astonished to hear them tell the king this was his land, but he decided to play along. "This field always produces a good harvest," said Tom. Puss ran ahead. In the next field he passed, some men were repairing grain. "Tell the king this field belongs to Duke of Camberus," he snarled, "or my master will grind you into mincemeat." Horrified, the men agreed. When the royal coach arrived at the next field, the king got out. As big as the field was twice as big as the one before. "Who owns the field?" he asked some workers. "The Duke of Camberus, your highness," they replied. Puss made some threats to everyone he met. The king was astonished to how much land the Duke owned. Finally, Puss reached a magnificent castle. It was owned by a furious orc, but that didn't stop Puss. The orc happened to be one of the richest orcs in the country. All the land they had passed on the way was actually his. The orc greeted Puss, licking his lips, and invited the cat inside. Puss smiled. He was about to try his biggest trick. "I've heard," he said to the orc, that you can change yourself into any creature you want. Could you really turn into an elephant or a lion? See it yourself. It was true. In seconds, the orc turned into a huge lion. Puss was terrified. After rolling and roaring for a while, the orc changed back to himself. That was the most frightening thing I've ever seen, cried Puss. But I've also been told, he went on, that you can change into a really small animal, such as a rat or a mouse. Of course, said the orc, rather boastful. Just what? Isn't that impossible? Said Puss. And he did, but as soon as Puss saw the tiny smile scrambling around, he leaped on him and gobbled him up. By this time, the royal coach had reached the old castle. Let's visit, said the king, who wanted to see who owned such a grand home. Puss heard the coach clanking over the drawbridge. He flung open the castle door. Your Majesty, welcome to the castle of my master, the Duke of Camberus. You mean you own this splendid castle as well as all that land? The king asked. Tom in amazement. Trying to hide his surprise, Tom nodded. Would you mind if I took a look all around? asked the king. Not at all. In the banquet hall, a grand feast was laid for the orc. The table had been crammed with pies, meat, cheese, trifle, and cake. The king's mouth started to water. That does look good, she said. Please join us for lunch. The king was impressed with the duke's wonderful castle, and Prince Ambrose thought he was kind to let them share his feast. As the king ate, he noticed that Duke and his daughter were getting along very well indeed. He realized the Duke would make a perfect prince. By the end of the meal, the king could not keep his thought to himself. Duke of Camberus, he declared, will you marry my daughter? I'd be delighted, sir, said Tom. A wedding was arranged for the very next day. And so the miller's youngest son became a prince and lived happily in the castle with his beautiful bride. Tom's brothers were both made heirs. As for Puss, he became a lord and never had to chase a mice again. Never ever. Except for fun. Wow, that book was very fun. I read this book many times already, but I read it with you and I feel more fun, more comfortable, and more excited. I like this book very much, and Puss is good at making people scared and making the orc vanish and eat him up. That was a very good and interesting story. I think you liked it too. So now I'm going to say bye-bye.